Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Bunny and Butterfly, and I'm sipping on some peach ginger tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, purple violet, deep yellow, green oxide, burnt sienna, which I usually call rust, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, Mars black, and chrome orange. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'll be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 8 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting the background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are white, purple, yellow, and green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be applying it in a circular type of fashion. I want it to kind of look nice and out of focus, as if all of the colors that are created in the rest of the painting are just kind of blurring and blending in the background. So I'm going to start with some white and a tiny bit of purple on my brush, and I'm just going to start circling it around in this nice, soft, and gentle kind of blurred type of look. Then I'll pick up some white. You can use a good amount of paint on your brush at this point while you're doing this type of out of focus background. I'm going to bring the purple probably about halfway down, or the purple and the white probably about halfway down my canvas before I start introducing the yellow into the equation. I'm going to be doing white and purple up at the top, then I'm going to transition down to a little bit of yellow, and then I'll end it down at the bottom in the grass with a little bit of green. So you can make this as purple or as light as you want. It's totally up to you. This is just intended to be a nice kind of carefree, out of focus type of background. Let's bring in a little bit more purple on in over here. And then what I'm going to do is, now that I've got it about halfway down, I'm going to start introducing some yellow and white. I didn't wash my brush. I just picked up a good amount of yellow and white on my brush, and I'm going to start to intermingle this color with the purple. I don't necessarily need to go too high up into it. If you wanted to really intermingle a lot, you could certainly bring yours up higher. If you're digging those colors, you could even put like little almost circular type of areas within the upper portion with the yellow and the white. That'll be totally up to you. And then I'm just kind of getting some little sunshine down in this grassy area, is kind of what I have it interpreting as in my head. And I'm using, as I go through this blending process, you don't have to really scrub too hard or keep blending too much. Usually when you're doing something like this, you can, if you're using a good amount of paint, light pressure will allow you to kind of spin it around and blend it enough without over blending it. But that's something you can kind of practice as you go. So now I'm picking up some yellow and green on my dirty brush. I did not wash my brush. I just picked up yellow and green, and I'm getting this to blend in a little bit with that section that I did previously. So as I do this, I just kind of bring it back, I blend it back up into the previous section, and that allows for this overlapping and gentle kind of out of focus blending to happen. And then I'm just going to kind of keep going down my bottom, down to the bottom of my canvas. The next time I go to pick up paint, I'm just going to pick up green. So I just have green on my brush right now with whatever remnants are still on it from the previous load. And then I just kind of finish all the way down to the bottom of my canvas and just spinning it around on the canvas to blend it with that section that is above it. And then I just come all the way over here. If you wanted to, you could wrap this color around the edges of your canvas as well, and that'll make it look nice and finished and like a professionally complete painting. And then we are going to be utilizing our pencil for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can make any little fiddling, adjusting things that you feel are necessary, and then put this large brush away. Take out your pencil and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to outline our bunny and our butterfly. I'm going to be using my pencil. I do want to recommend, though, that before you start the step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry. Or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer to get it dry. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be guiding you through a series of markers, and then we're just going to connect those markers. It's going to be for some really basic shapes. We're not going to go for any fine-tuned detail. We're just looking for some nice generic shapes, so when we go to color it in with paint, it'll make it an easier process for us. So I'm going to start with the bunny, and I'm going to start with the bunny's head, and then we'll build off of that. So I've got my bunny kind of looking off to this direction, and maybe with its head almost kind of looking up to where I'm going to have my butterfly. So I'm going to start my bunny head shape in the shape of like a sideways egg. So it's going to be kind of rounder or bigger on this side where the back of the head is, and then it's going to kind of come down to a little bit of a more narrow position over on the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself the center of my canvas left to right and up and down. So that would be somewhere in through here for me. And then I'm going to go up from that, maybe about an inch, inch and a half, make myself a little bit of a marker. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come about halfway between that and the bottom of my canvas and make another marker. I might be a little bit shy. This might be a little bit less than halfway to this. So maybe if this is about halfway, I'm a little bit above that, somewhere in through there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of here, right about here. And I'm going to go to the left of that, maybe about an inch and a half to 2 inches, give myself another little marker. I'm going to find the center of it here again, and then I'm going to go to the right of this about, I would say about 4 inches. If, let's say, half the distance between here and here is about here, I'm about an inch to the left of that, somewhere in through here. So those are going to be my 4 markers. I'm going to connect those with an oval type of a shape that's going to be wider on this side and more narrow on this side. So I'm going to go from this marker and go up a little bit. I'm going to come down and round it over here, and then I'm going to do the same thing to this marker in through here. So this is going to be nice and round, and then as I come towards this marker, I'm going to bring it in an upward type of motion, and it's going to be this side of the oval will be a little bit more narrow, which will represent like a sideways egg in my professional egg shape opinion. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself some ears. So I'm going to find kind of the top of what would be the head, or about halfway left to right in through here. I'm going to go to the right of that, maybe about an inch, somewhere in through here. Then I'm going to come down here about 2 inches to about here, make myself another marker. I'm going to split the difference between these two and go in a diagonal motion up towards the top of my canvas, almost towards the corner. If this was towards the corner, I'm a little bit to the left of that, and I'm right about here. So about half the distance between here and the edge of my canvas. And then I'm going to connect those with a fun bunny-shaped ear. So something like this, maybe give it a little bit of movement over on this right side, so a little bit of a indent in through there. Give myself a little ear. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the left of this, maybe about 1/4 of an inch, make myself a marker. I'm going to come down from the top of this ear, maybe about 1.5 to 2 inches, make myself another marker. I'm going to connect these two with a similar shape to the top of the other ear. So just some kind of little rounded, I'm going to bring it up just a little bit and then just kind of back around in through there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line for the front of my bunny chest. So I'm going to come to the right of my bunny nose, I would say about 1.5 inches, and come down towards that chest right in through here. I want this to kind of, the bottom of the bunny is going to get hidden in the grass. So I'm going to give myself a curved line, but I'm going to stop about 1.5 to 2 inches before the edge of the canvas, before the bottom. So just a little bit of a curved line in through there will get me started. Then on the back side, this is going to be his back, my bunny back, my bunny butt back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down from here about almost 1 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch, something like that. And then same thing, I'm going to curve this out, but this is going to be much more curved than that. You can give yourself a marker right about here. So this is about 3 inches away from the right hand side of my canvas, and it's about as high up as this. So I can give myself a little bit of a marker here and then connect these two with a nice curved line. So there's my bunny back butt into there. And then I'm just going to connect these two with a really sketchily line. This is going to get hidden in the grass, but it gives you a stopping point. Now I need a tail. So I'm just going to give myself this round type of shape in through here. So I'm going to come about almost halfway down my bunny butt back and then just give myself a nice kind of circular type shape in through here, bringing it down about as far as this marker in through here. And of course that is all going to be reshaped or modified when we paint it in. So that's all I'm going to be doing for the bunny. For my butterfly, I'm going to have my butterfly up in this area. You could have it higher, you could have it lower, you could have it resting on your bunny nose. You could really put it wherever you want. But I'm going to have mine in through here. I'm going to do a nice generic type of shape that's going to resemble a butterfly that's indigenous to where I live, which is a monarch butterfly. So I'm going to put the wings that are closest to me on first. So I've got my bottom of my top wing is, I would say, almost even with the top of my bunny head. So somewhere right about here is, and it's about halfway between my bunny head and the edge of my canvas. So somewhere about here is where I've got it, or maybe about 2 inches from my bunny nose, somewhere in through here. And then I'm just going to give myself a big curved line up in this vicinity. So I'm almost as high as my bunny ears, but again, that's going to be however big or small you want to put your butterfly. And then I'm just going to kind of connect these with this wavy type of line to give myself that first wing for it. Then the next wing is going to be this bottom section in through here. So I'm going to give myself a diagonal line in through here that's going to come, I would say, almost as far out as that. And then I'm going to connect it to right about here. So I'm just going to give myself this curved type of a line for this exterior bottom wing. The next wing I'm going to do is similar to this one. It's on the other side of the butterfly. So I'm going to start it right in through here, and I'm going to end it about halfway up this wing in through here. So right about here. It's going to be about the same height as this one. So I can just give myself a little bit of a marker if I need to. And then I'm just going to give myself a little curve that's going to represent this, similar to that, and then over on this right hand side just bring this down to meet in through here. And then if you wanted to at this point, you could certainly make a little marker for the body, but that we can certainly do while we're painting as well. And that's all we're going to be doing for our outline. We are going to be utilizing our medium brush, or no, our large brush for the next step. So you can put your pencil down, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for the bunny. I'm going to use my large brush, which I'm not sure if last step I told you medium or large, but whatever I said, I meant large brush. So I'm going to be using my large brush to do the base coat here. I'm going to, in essence, be making myself a nice, cute bunny tan kind of color for this. So I have pre-mixed my bunny tan in through here. So I'm going to show you how I got there. What I did was I utilized some white, yellow, rust, and brown, and I just started mixing them together. So it might start out a little bit too pink, it might start out a little bit too brown, it might start out a little bit too yellow. Once you see what you get, then you just start to adjust it. So if I want a little more yellow, I just add a little bit more yellow into it. So this is looking actually pretty good for me, so I'm going to utilize that. My bunny tan is kind of almost the same color as my skin, so that kind of gives you a reference point for your bunny tan if you want. And then I'm just going to color in my entire bunny. I don't need to do anything fancy other than maybe slow down at the edges. If you want it to look a little fluffier, you can tap your brush along those edges, but we'll be doing another step which is going to allow us to make all of these textural elements if we want to. And if you can still see your pencil mark underneath your paint, that's okay too. Or if you can't see it, that's all right as well. That's going to be, we'll be able to work through whether or not you can see your pencil mark. When I get down to the grassy area in through here, nothing special, just kind of covering up that pencil mark. You can do a dot technique to get the paint on. You can do a swirling type of technique. At this point, there's not going to be much of a difference what you do, because again, we'll be painting everything on top of it. This is just giving us a nice base coat to start with. The only part that I am going to slow down and make sure that I know where my pencil mark is between these two ears. So I'm going to color in everything else nice and easy and carefree, but when I get to the difference between these two ears, if my pencil mark is not visible, or if your pencil mark is not visible throughout the rest of your bunny, then what you'll want to do is save yourself a little bit of a space between these two ears, or just allow for yourself to be able to see that pencil mark, because you'll want to know where the difference of those two ears is in a future step. And then what we're going to be doing is we are going to be switching to our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the base coat for our butterfly. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are orange, yellow, and white. And what I'm going to be doing, these butterflies inherently have a little bit of a gradient of color between the top wings and the bottom wings. It's more orange up at the top and more yellow down at the bottom. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going from this vibrant orange color down to the yellow color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with orange paint on my brush, and I am just going to kind of rub it in the top of the wing itself. This back wing I can actually do mostly with this orange color. I'm going to be putting a little bit of yellow on it in a minute, but I'm just going to bring this all the way to the edge. You most likely will be able to see your pencil mark underneath this type of color, so don't worry about that. I'm going to, right as I'm getting near that end or the other wing, I picked up a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to put a little bit of yellow right in this crevice in through here and get those two to just kind of blend in with one another a little bit. Then I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up more orange, and I'm going to start this wing up in through here with just my orange. So I've got orange on my brush, and you'll see as I come next to the other one, you'll be able to see the difference because it's got the orange next to the yellow. So that'll give you an immediate way to see the difference between these two wings. And then as I come down towards this next wing, that's when I'm going to start picking up my yellow color, and that's going to transition down into that bottom wing, which will be a little bit more on the yellow side. So once I've got this on here, I think I have too much orange on my brush. If you get down to this bottom one and you've got a lot of orange showing, just wash and dry your brush like I just did and pick up some more yellow, and that'll make sure that you have the vibrancy in that yellow down on this bottom wing. And then once I've got the yellow on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of white paint to get this to look a little bit softer as it is coming down here. And again, I'm going to wash and dry my brush just so I don't have too much of any of the other colors on it. I picked up a tiny bit of white paint, and I'm just going to give myself a little bit of lightness in through here. You could even pull it up in through here a little bit if you wanted to, and I'm just blending it out a little bit. And then once you've got this done, we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So you can just put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some facial features. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, white, brown, and rust. And maybe some of my tan as well. So what I'm in essence going to do is I'm going to put my eye and my nose and the essence of a mouth in place with some black paint, and then I'll come back and do some details on them. So I'm going to load my brush with black paint, and of course you could certainly sketch these out with a pencil if you wanted to just make sure that you're putting them in the place that you want. So I've got my eye right in this area in through here. So to know where that is, I'm kind of just a little bit to the right of where the chest meets the head, and I would say about an inch away from, inch and a half away from the top of my canvas. And then what you can do is just kind of start yourself with a oval type of a circle in through here like this. This will just get you started. And then once you've got that basic shape started, then you can start pulling out more information to make it look a little bit more realistic. Like for me, I like to pull out these inside corners. So I'm going to just kind of pull this bottom left down and away from the eye a little bit. Then maybe I'll bring this bottom section down a little bit more. I'll put a little bit of a point on the back side of this eye. And the way that I'm steering these points, it's going to steer the viewer to understand that the eye is kind of looking at that little butterfly. So you can have fun with, you know, just kind of tweaking the shape or the direction of these little points in order to explain to the viewer what direction that little animal is looking at. So that's looking pretty good. And I'm just kind of thinning it out so it's not too heavy of a coat of paint. Then I'm going to go over to the nose. I'm going to have my nose, if this is where my eye is, if you go straight over to the edge of the bunny and then down just a little bit, I'm just going to put myself a little bump for where I want that nose to be and just bring it into the fur a little bit. And then the mouth, I'm just going to kind of do the same thing. I'm just really going to give myself a little loose, sketcherly kind of representation of where I want that mouth to go. Nothing much, just something that is going to explain to the viewer that that's where the mouth is, and just kind of bumping it, you know, out as much as I want. I'm giving little soft lines for that mouth and for the edge of the nose, just so they're not too much of a solid type of line. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to go back and work on the eye. So my eye, what I'm going to do is first see if it's dry. It's a little bit wet, so I'm going to start working on the exterior part of the eye. I'm going to be using, I don't know if I said that I was going to, yeah, I'm using rust. I didn't know if I said I was going to use that or not, but I am definitely using rust. I'm going to utilize rust on the outside of the eye in through here, just to give myself a little bit of more texture and dimension in that fur, maybe a little bit over the top. I'm picking up a tiny bit of white paint now, just to give myself a little bit more texture and dimension in the fur around that eye. I like to kind of just, especially with animals, use these sketcherly type of brush strokes around the eye with kind of more of contrasting colors to what you'll find around the rest of the animal. So that way the expression in the eyes really begins to pop out and tell, you know, the story of whether or not he's curious or whether or not he's, you know, confused or excited or happy. So this is, you know, one of those things that just adding those bit of information with the fur and all that stuff helps out. I just picked up a little bit of my tan for to make sure that these colors just kind of blend in nice and naturally with the surrounding area. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the inside of the eye. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm putting some rust paint on my brush. I'm going to give myself the colored part of the eye, which is going to be down on this bottom left-hand side. And I'm really just kind of leaving a little bit of black paint in the corner of the eye, as well as between the colored part and the fur part. So leaving that little bit of black will allow it to look a little bit more natural. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm picking up a little bit of white and black. So in essence, I've got gray on my brush right now, and I'm going to put a little kind of swipe of gray on the eye in order to give it almost like a little bit of a glare or a glow. So just a little bit of black and white around that top. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint, give myself a couple of little sparkle dots in here. So maybe just a couple of little sparkle dots in the direction of where the butterfly is, and that'll again tell the story of the butterfly, or of him looking at the butterfly. I'm going to put a little highlight on my nose. So again, just a little bit of black and white on my brush is going to give me a tiny bit of a highlight on there, black and white, and then a touch of white. So just give myself a little tiny button nose. You could have a pink little nose if you wanted to, but I just wanted mine to be a gray nose. And then you can do any little fiddling or adjusting that you want. We are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to put the dark areas on the bunny. So I was going to call it shadowy areas, but it's more shadow areas and the dark fur that I'm going to be putting. So I'm going to have a little bit of dark fur on the nose. We'll be shadowing inside the ear. Maybe this back ear is going to get a little bit of dark fur. We'll put some around the neck. We'll put some underneath the bunny and underneath the tail. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The dominant colors that I'm going to be using are brown and rust, but I most likely will also pick up my base tan to help me blend in a little bit. So the trick here is you don't really need a lot of paint on your brush. I'm really just going to be going for some darker areas. This bunny's he's going to be fluffy, but the darker areas I can just kind of smoothly put on. The fluffiness will come from the texture when I do the lighter fur on the outside. So I'm going to have a little bit of a shadow area back here. So I'm going to just start with a little bit of brown paint on my brush. I want this to look like it's maybe the back side of the head and maybe just a little bit of a dip in the neck. So I can just kind of rub in a little bit of dark fur in through there. I can do the same thing underneath the tail. So I can just kind of utilize my brown paint and just kind of rub it up into the bunny butt and the bottom of the bunny tail, something like this. And if you ran into a problem where you couldn't blend it in, you can always pick up your original tan and just kind of get it to blend in that way. Or if you want your bunny to have a little bit more of the rusty tones, you can certainly utilize the burnt sienna as well. And I'll probably add that a little bit in a minute too. So right now, I picked up more of my brown. I'm going to give myself a nice kind of uneven shadowy area at the bottom of my bunny. And again, I'm just kind of wiggling my brush a little bit. Almost like a scrubbing type of technique to give myself an uneven kind of darkness down at the bottom. I'll put a little bit underneath his chin in through here, so just a little bit underneath here. This is going to help to tell us the shape of the head, as well as give us a little bit of that shadowing underneath it. I'm going to do the same thing on the face. So, oops, I just picked up a little color I wasn't expecting. On the face, I want this to look a little bit kind of more textured. So I think I have brown on my brush. I am going to kind of just dot it a little bit as opposed to rubbing. It might not give too much different of an appearance, but I just felt that I would want to run down this area so it had a little bit more texture. But if you want to just rub that area in, feel free to do so, because I'm probably not going to do a lot of light fur on top of this, whereas these I'll most likely have another layer on top of them. So now I'm picking up a little bit more brown paint. I'm going to go for the inside of this ear. So the inside of this ear, or this ear itself, is going to come into the head a little bit. So I want to bring my darkness in kind of past my original circle mark or my original head outline. And then I'm just going to give this interior part of the ear a little bit more color. So I'm picking up a little bit of my burnt sienna right now, wit and brown. So I have both colors on my brush right now, and I just want this interior of this ear to be nice and dark, and make this look like it's the outside edge of the ear, and then in through here, maybe this just kind of fades into this other exterior part of the ear as well in through here. I know also that there's going to be some flowers and stuff in through here, so I'm going to put a little bit of more shadow back at the bottom side of this ear in through here. So something like this, not much, just a little bit in through there, maybe a little bit in between the head. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of rust with my brown again, so I can put a little bit of that reddish kind of tone back here, so that way I've carried kind of a little bit of that burnt sienna color somewhere else onto the bunny, on the body itself. So that's looking pretty good for me. Now I got to tackle this ear over here. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to just pick up more burnt sienna. So this ear will be a little bit different in tone than the rest of the body. So maybe it'll look like whatever this kind of skin tone is on the inside has also kind of given a little bit of that tone to the outside of the ear. And we'll be putting a little bit of a highlight on this too. So if it's too rusty of a color for you, you can certainly, when we go to do the other step, tone it down a little bit. And I'm thinking that that's pretty good with all the darkness that I want to have on here. You can certainly keep fiddling with yours as much as you want. We're going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So you can put this medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our bunny. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. I'm going to be using white, tan, maybe a little bit of yellow, maybe a little bit of rust, or any other color I need to finish it. But that's what I'm thinking, because I'm really just going to be doing some little highlights, adding texture to my fur, and for me that's going to be predominantly with white and my tan, but I might want to use some extra little highlights of colors as we go through the process. So the biggest tip I can give you for this step is never have a lot of paint on your brush at any one time. If you pick up a big scoop of white and you go to try and make texture on this fur, what's going to happen is it's going to be a big glob of white and you're not going to be able to see all of the other colors that we've already put on there. So you're just going to use a little bit of paint on the edge of your brush, and you're going to be just kind of utilizing this almost, you know, either dotting or just kind of tapping it in a direction that you want that fur to go. We'll be doing a little highlight on the ears, so we'll put some in this direction. We'll bring, you know, maybe putting a little bit of a highlight up in through here. We just never need a lot of paint on our brush. You can always put more, but it's really tough to take away once it's on there. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start with a bit of my tan plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush. So little that I just tapped it off on the side of my palette. Utilizing the tan with the white is also pretty safe because it will help you to control it from not being too white. So I'm just going to start with my tail here, and I want my tail to look fluffy, so I'm going to just start dotting in my little fluffiness to it. I want it to be lighter on the top, so I like to build my way to the light. So now I'm picking up a little bit more white, and now I'm going to just kind of tap in a little bit brighter up at the top. So I started with tan and white, and then I'm ending up with just white on my brush. And this is going to give me this nice fluffy three-dimensional aspect to it. So I'm going to do the same thing on the body. I'm picking up a little bit of tan and a touch of white, so not a lot at all. I want my fur to kind of look like it is maybe fluffy up here and maybe has a little bit of length in through here. So I've got my my little dotting type of technique that I'll do up here. That's a little white for me, so I just picked up more of my tan to kind of dull it down a little bit, and just starting to tap it in here like this. I don't want to ruin all of my shadowy kind of areas, so as I near those, I can just kind of tap a little bit of paint on top of them so I can give it a little bit of texture. As I'm coming down in through here, maybe I want it to look a little bit longer, so I can start pulling with the corner of my brush just to give myself a little bit more fluffiness in that fur. And again, right now I'm just using a little bit of that tan plus the white, so I'm not going too light yet, but I am allowing for some good dimension to happen in the fur because it is a little bit lighter than the base coat that we did. Back in this area, back in through here, just kind of tapping this in so it makes sure that it blends in well. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint. I mean, just a teeny tiny bit on the tips of that brush to maybe put a couple of little extra bright pieces maybe in the front of this area, and then just bringing it back as much as I want to. Maybe you want your bunny to be really, really light, so feel free to make yours as light as you want. And if you come to a point where you're like, wow, my paint just isn't drying, everything is blending together, then just give it a minute. Go on to another area and come back to the area that was, you know, giving you a little bit of trouble and maybe not drying as fast as you wanted. Because when we're building these layers in such a quick way, sometimes they don't dry fast enough for us, and it doesn't make it easy to build on top of it. So use your discretion when it comes to that. Now I'm going to go onto the face. I'm picking up some of my tan plus a little bit of white, and again, not much. I just tapped it off on my paper towel. I think I'm actually going to go do my ears first. So I'm going to I have tan plus a little bit of white. I'm bringing this ear into the head a little bit, so that way it looks like it is, you know, part of that head in through there, and then just making sure that I've got this blended out. This would kind of blend into the interior part of the ear, I think, a little bit, something like that. Maybe a touch more white to give it a little bit more brightness on this part that pops out the most. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm just gonna maybe put a little bit more of the white in through here as well. Just make sure that I've got as much dimension on here as I had hoped to. So there we go. That's looking pretty good. And then I'm gonna just wipe my brush off on my paper towel, add just a teeny bit of a highlight up at the top of this ear, so it looks like it's catching a little bit of the sunshine as well. Now I'm gonna go into the face. So I'm gonna just kind of see what I have on my brush right now, and this is looking pretty good to give me a little bit of textural element on that face. I'm gonna just bring some of this fur down in through here. I'm gonna pick up, I think I'm gonna pick up, I'm going to go for a little bit of yellow and white on this face. I want to change it up a little bit so it looks a little bit more like it's got sunshine on it. I didn't wash my brush, so I'm in essence kind of taking that tan and I added a touch of yellow and a touch of white to it. So I have a different kind of highlight color for the face. So you can do that with these little tonal changes to give it a little bit more transition from, you know, maybe where it's nearing the ground to where it's near the sunshine a little bit more. So I added a touch more yellow into it just to kind of tell that story that this is near, you know, the sunshine a little bit more than the other is. And then I just can keep picking up my original tan to make sure that I've got this blended as much as I want it to, and then I'm going to start giving myself some little bits of soft texture around the face in through here, and then I'm going to have, my bunny's going to have some long feathers. Bunnies don't have feathers, some long fur around the face, so I'm going to just kind of bring this back. I hardly have any paint on my brush right now because I want to have kind of layers of of feathers, wow, of fur on the face. So that's why I'm using that tannish color right now, and then I will add a little bit more white on top of it in a minute. So I'm gonna actually, behind this eye, I'm picking up a touch of brown because I want there to be a little bit of dimension behind this eye. So I picked up a tiny bit of brown to get it to go a little bit darker back in through here so that head has a little bit more shape. And then I will start adding my little white pieces of fur on top of here. So white paint is going on my brush right now, and very little bit, so little, wiping it off on my paper towel, and then I can just pull out as many little pieces of white fur as I want. And this is a building process. Again, if you do it and you're like, wow, I just did too much, then just step back for a minute, let it dry. You can always come back with more of the original tan, and you can intermingle that within the fur itself. You can have some of this fur kind of going over the edge in through here, maybe down this little bottom. The fluffier you want it, the fluffier you make it. I'm going to just kind of tap this into here, and then I would just kind of keep fiddling with it. I would let it dry, step back for a minute. Maybe I just picked up some more of my original tan, see if there's anything more that I needed to do. And then once I've got it done, we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So you can just put this large brush away after you've done as much little fiddling on your bunny as you want. Take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish our butterfly. I'm gonna be using my small brush, and the colors I'm gonna use are black and white. And if I use any others, I'll let you know. So what I'm in essence gonna be doing is I'm gonna be outlining the entire butterfly with black, and then we'll be making some strategically placed marks to make it resemble a monarch butterfly, and then we'll do the body and all that good stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm loading my brush with black paint, but what I'm also doing is I'm watering down my black paint a little bit. You could use liquid medium or a little bit of water in order to thin it out so you can have some nice clean fluid lines as you're doing this, and it'll make your process a little bit easier. So once you've got your paint in the way that you want, really what I'm going to start by doing is just outlining my wings. So I don't need to do anything fancy here. I'm just giving it a nice kind of crisp outline around the edges, making sure that I hide my pencil mark. And if for some reason a little bit of my pencil mark eludes me, that's okay. I can find another way to get it to disappear. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to maneuver my hand up in through here so I can get this to come down in through here. And again, the fluidity in my black paint that I created with the water really helps me to make these nice continual smooth lines. I know that that's kind of a part of painting that becomes a little bit difficult for people to do, especially with acrylic paint, because it dries so fast. But for me, I allow myself the luxury of having it nice and fluid, and it provides me, it'll sink right into the little crevices of the canvas, and it gives me these nice smooth lines, and I don't fight with it too much. So now that I've got that outline done, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some marks for it within the wings themselves, kind of like veins. So I'm going to take this bottom one, I'm going to give myself this little bit of a loop type of a mark in through here, and then I'm going to connect this loop in. You don't have to do yours exactly the same as mine. I'm just doing a carefree. I connect it to the edges of the of that particular wing. It can even be broken up a little bit, and in additional kind of branches, so to speak. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this one. I'm going to give myself kind of a loop in the middle, and then I take that loop and I start connecting it to the edges of that particular wing. And again, you can branch it off in some areas if you feel that that makes the balance of it better. And the from one wing to the next does not have to be exactly the same. This one we're just going to see a part of it, so I'm going to just kind of give myself the top part of that loop and then just connect that loop to the edge of the wing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thicken where the outline meets that little part that we connected. So something like this, it's going to make these edges, it's going to give me more room to put the dots that are very iconic for these butterflies. So I'm just kind of taking wherever that line met the edge of the wing and thickening it up a little bit. I think I want another one in through here. So there we go. Just thicken that up a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing on the other wing. So again, wherever it meets the exterior, I just thicken that line so it almost goes into it in a gradual type of way, which provides me more area to put the polka dots that we're going to be putting in a minute. These butterflies have these beautiful white polka dotted markings along the edges of their wings. So we're providing a place for those polka dots to go right now. I think I also want this one to be a little bit wider in here so I can have more polka dots over there. And then again, just kind of taking this and making this line look like it goes in gradually to the edge, and then I'll do the same thing for this bottom one in through here. So again, just widening that line as it is meeting the edge of the wing in through here. So it almost gives like this little curved type of look to the entry point or to the meeting point of there. So while this is drying a little bit, I'm going to go and put that body on. So I'm just going to kind of follow my pencil mark. I'm going to make where the head is a little bit wider, and then down that body where the tail goes a little bit more narrow. I'm going to put a couple of antennas on. So if you're nervous about antennas, you can do it on a little piece of paper first to get yourself in. I can't even talk when I do antennas. Just a little tiny line. Little tiny line, there we go. Oh, that one needs to be a little bit longer. Antennas are like eyelashes for me. They hardly ever come out exactly as I want them to. And then maybe just widen this a little bit. Maybe I'll put a couple of little legs that are going to be flying. I don't know how many legs a butterfly really has, but I'm just giving them as if they're in flight and maybe coming backwards. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a whole bunch of white, beautiful polka dots as the design element on these butterfly wings. So I just have white paint, and I'm just going to make a whole bunch of little, they don't even have to be in a perfect pattern, just somewhere in the black area, just a whole bunch of little white polka dots will really give you the illusion of this type of butterfly. And then, oops, that's way too much paint on my brush. And then once I've got my polka dots on here, if I can keep my hand out of the way, I'm going to put a couple on the body as well. These butterflies have these little white polka dots on the shell of their main body as well too. So you can certainly add as many little white polka dots there as you want. I think they can even come down into these little veins. If you've got enough room there to put some, feel free to do so. And then I'm just going to kind of keep cruising along here. If your black was still wet, you could certainly just wait a minute for that to dry. And then I'm going to put a couple on the, I think I want a couple coming down in through here too, just to break up these two wings a little bit. There we go. And then just a couple of little ones on the body, wherever you want, and then fiddle with it as much as you want. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step, so you can put this small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint grass, stems, and leaves. So what I'm going to do, I'm using my medium brush. I'm going to be using black, green, brown, maybe some yellow and white as well. I'm going to be putting my little stems and leaves of the flowers that I want on my bunny's head. I'm going to be putting those in around the ears. Then I'm going to be putting some wild grass all along the ground. The wild grass will include the stems for the flowers too. So I'm going to be just really utilizing a nice carefree brush stroke, a lot of paint on my brush, very impressionistic, and just having a freestyle fun time adding wild grass. I'm going to start up here in the controlled place first, and then we'll get down to having a whole bunch of fun. So I'm going to load my brush with some green and black, and I am just going to have this kind of wrapping between my ears and maybe out the side or the back of it. So I have green and black on my brush right now. I'm going to just kind of have some carefree little stems and leaves of sorts. So for a leaf, I'll push my brush a little bit harder and give it kind of a you can give it like a little bit of a rounded look. For a stem, I would just have it on the skinnier side. It almost doesn't matter how many you have, because you'll be putting flowers in whatever strategic place that you want. So if you're going through this process and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want one there or not, don't put one there. And then you can put a flower there if you feel like you need a space filler later. And I'm going to put it kind of maybe just wrapped right around the ear in here, maybe with a little leaf coming out in through there, maybe a little leaf or two coming down in through here. You can really just be carefree with it. We'll be putting little highlights and stuff when we go to do the flowers. We'll be able to kind of bend it and manipulate it to look a little bit fancier. But right now, just green and black is just giving me this, the start to this, giving me some place where I can put my flowers and things of that nature. So something like that. That looks pretty good to me. You don't need to overdo it. Just a little bit of it there will help. So I just put some green and black on my brush. I really want there to be a lot of shadowy type of dark grass down at the bottom of the bunny. So I'm going to kind of just rub in this color in through here. I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown as well and just kind of give myself what would be these real dark pieces sitting at the bottom of my bunny. So it gives us the illusion that he's really kind of deep in the grass. And once I've got that in there, it doesn't even have to all go right up to the bunny. If you have little light spots in through there, that might look like there's a little bit of sunshine, maybe just poking through a couple of those pieces of grass. So don't feel like you have to do 100% coverage in through there. And then I'm just going to kind of pick up green, black, and brown to give myself these longer pieces of grass that are just going to kind of come in front of the bunny a little bit. The utilization of those three colors is going to give you a nice assortment of the dark pieces of grass, which are definitely needed in order to have dimension within this type of scenery. So you don't just want to go green, you've got to have shadows and stuff inside your grass. So that's where these dark pieces come into play. Again, I just kind of reloaded myself with a little bit more green, black, and brown. I'm going to bring a whole bunch in through here, maybe pulling a couple in front of the bunny tail. And definitely you want to put some, coming out everywhere. You don't just necessarily want it to coming out of the bottom of the canvas or just at the level where the bunny is. You can certainly bring some, throughout that whole area, and then you can even bring some over these edges as if he's just nestled right in deep into the wild grass in through here. So again, I still just have green, brown, and black on my brush. I'm going to do the same thing over here, adding myself different lengths of wild grass in through here. I'll be adding some light stuff in a minute, but before I start adding the light stuff onto my brush, I'm purposely using these darker tones so I can get that depth and dimension into the grass. And I'm also considering these to be my stems for my flowers too. So if I'm going to have some flowers up here, I might as well have a couple of longer pieces that are going to allow me the opportunity to put flowers up in through there. I'll have some out of focus flowers too, but the ones that are going to be close up, I can definitely utilize something like that. Now that I've got the dark grass on, so to speak, now I'm going to start putting some light stuff on. I am going to wash and dry my brush because I want to put a little bit of lightness in those leaves up on the head. So I'm washing and drying my brush. For my light stuff, I'll most likely be using green, yellow, and white on my brush at the same time. If I feel that it's too light or too yellow or too green, I might pick up a different combination, but I like, again, utilizing these multiple colors on my brush because it allows me to, in an easy way, get these different tonal values and provide me with a lot of information without doing much work. So again, green, yellow, and white, and just popping in little bits of highlights here and there. And then once I've got that as much as I want, and again, I don't really need to do much, I'm going to start doing the same thing for the grass. So green, yellow, and white, and giving myself some longer pieces of grass in front or on top of those darker ones. And again, don't need to do much, just really giving myself the entire illusion of a full, wild grass type of area. I like to put lots of curves into my wild grass, put lots of length onto it. The ones that are closer or farther down the canvas towards the bottom, I push harder so they actually are wider than the ones that are farther away. So that also gives kind of a depth perception or illusion to the painting to let you feel like these ones down at the bottom are the closest to the viewer. So if you push your brush a little bit harder, you'll get that wider brush stroke, which will allow it to look like it's closer to the viewer. And then you just kind of keep fiddling with it until you feel like you've got a good balance of light and dark grass or stems. And then once that happens, we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So fiddle with your grass as much as you want, put as much in there as you want, use your, anywhere from black, brown, green, yellow, and white to get this on here. And then you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the base coat for our flowers. I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are purple and white. I do recommend, again, that maybe you make sure that your grass is dry before you start this step so you don't run into wetness. But what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be giving a very loose interpretation of pansy flowers, which can come in an assortment of different colors. I'm opting to do a purple colored one, which again, even the purple ones can have different variations to them. But anyways, so pansies are a pretty round type of a flower with, I think, 5 kind of roundish petals around it. So as I'm creating this base coat for them, I want to have a variety of sizes and shapes for them, but my brush stroke will definitely be thinking and being told to go in a round type of shape for them. Even if we're seeing the side of one of them, they still kind of have like a round type of petal to them from the side. So I'm going to start with just purple paint on my brush. I'm going to just give you a big one over here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with this shape. So that could be one petal, that could be another one, 3, 4, 5, and you don't even have to overlap them like that, and you don't have to have exactly 5 on all of them, but that just gives you the idea of how you can construct them. You can also do some, over on the side of your canvas. So this would be one that we'll just see like a little piece of. I'm going to be using quite a bit of paint on my brush as I go through this process. This is going to be just my base coat for them. I want to have big ones and little ones, and I can have partial ones. I can have little ones hiding in the grass. I can have big, huge ones down at the bottom of my canvas, because this would be the ones that are the closest to me. So you can certainly, or closest to the viewer. So you can certainly have fun with some big, huge ones down at the bottom, some medium-sized ones in between. You can have, little ones tucked behind pieces of grass. You can have little bud ones. You can really just kind of have fun with the assortment of sizes that you want. I'm going to do some out of focus ones in a minute back past the bunny, but right now I'm just kind of concentrating on doing some of the ones that are going to be in focus and nice and close. Maybe we've got a couple sitting right by the bottom of the bunny in through here. And I try and keep them in a chaotic type of way so they look like they're wild flowers instead of planted flowers in a nursery. So that's something that for me helps it look a little bit more natural and less staged, I guess. But you can certainly feel free to put them wherever you want to put them. But I like to kind of give mine this chaotic type of display. Maybe we've got a couple up in through here since I have some little stems coming out over here. I definitely want to put some in the headpiece, I guess, for the bunny. So I'm gonna just kind of pop maybe the little side of one coming out over here. Maybe this one is in between these leaves in through here. Maybe we've got a good size one back in through here. So have fun with however many you want to put on this little headpiece. Maybe I've got one right in through here. And again, this is just meant to have fun with wherever you want them placed. I think I'm going to put one right in this spot in through here, right on top of that leaf and stem. Overlap it. You don't have to just put it in, at the end or, next to, in a systematic order. You can put the one on top of the other. I'm going to have a big one maybe over in through here. That's looking pretty fun. Maybe just a little tiny one in through here. Maybe a little one in through here. So just have fun with it. It's pretty. I like that. That's good for me. I think that's enough of them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I want to put some out of focus ones in behind my bunny. So I wiped my brush off. I'm going to start closest to my in focus ones with the remnants on my brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let myself run out of paint as I'm going farther and farther away. If you still feel like you have a ton of paint on your brush at this point, you may want to dry it or wipe it off on your paper towel even more. I'm just going to kind of give myself the illusion of these really out of focus flowers way off in the distance, and then in a second I'm going to start putting a little bit of white paint on my brush just to give myself again, just a little bit more dimension in these flowers for that first layer before we start adding more information. So right now I'm picking up some purple and white on my brush, and I'm in essence going to kind of go back over some of these with purple and white. So that way I immediately have this start of some highlighted type of areas throughout these flowers, and it's going to give me a fun place to start that first round of, to start the information on them when I go to do the next step to them. So again, just purple and white on my brush. This is going to give me some different tones. I'll have some light ones and some dark ones. And then once I've got this on here, again, I'm not doing much, just kind of cruising along with purple and just a teeny tiny touch of white on my brush on the existing ones. It's just giving me this little bit of a highlight throughout some of their petals. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got these flowers on here, you've got a nice base coat for them, pop in a little bit of purple and white here and there just to kind of give yourself a little bit of extra information in them. And then you can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our flowers. I'm going to be using my small brush. You might find through this process that you want to use your medium brush. It's really going to be a comfort zone and how free style of a process you want to make yours. But I'm going to be, again, just doing this in a representational way of this particular style of daisies. So they have white, yellow, and black in the center of them. So I'm going to just do it in a quick kind of layering process. I'm not going to be doing all of my flowers because I don't want them to all look like they're straight pointed at the viewer. So I'm just going to be doing the centers to a few of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm using my small brush. I'll be using white, yellow, black, and probably some purple too. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white paint, and whatever flower I feel like I want to show the center, what I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of white paint on my brush. I put it in the center, and then I just kind of pull it out into however many petals I want to kind of be represented. So I just kind of am lightly pulling it out. We're going to be adding a lot of vibrancy to this in a minute, but this is just kind of getting the party started. And again, I think I want maybe this one is going to have a little bit, so my white, and then just kind of pull it out in however many areas of the petals that you want to show. Maybe this one's got a little bit. And again, I wouldn't necessarily do all of them, but some of them will work. I'm going to do this one down in through here, and then just kind of rub out or pull out that white in not a great fancy way, just kind of bringing it out so I've got a light area to work with in the center of that flower. I'm going to do this one in through here. So again, just a little bit of white. So what I'm really doing is I'm kind of priming the center of these flowers so I can get a real vibrancy to the interior of the flower. Because I know that the style I'm going for has this super bright yellow in the middle, and it's got some lightness to it too, but I wouldn't be able to get that brightness into the middle with how I built these, having that dark base to them, because that dark base would dull the brightness of a bright yellow, so to speak. So I'm utilizing this white as the as my like primer. So when I do put the yellow on there, you'll be able to see it really well. I'm going to put the edge of this one over in through here. So again, just kind of picking strategically a few of them, bringing some of this white into what I would refer to as the petals. And of course, you don't necessarily have to see all 5 petals. Maybe you're just seeing 4 on it, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to put a couple up in through here. And maybe yours don't end up looking exactly like this style daisy. You can always make up your own kind of flower as you're going through this process. That's what wildflowers are beautiful for. You can just kind of have fun and make them into whatever you've imagined them to be. So I think that one's going to be somewhere. I think I want to see the side of that one. And then I'm not sure if I want to see all of these. There we go. That'll work. Excellent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put yellow paint on my brush. So yellow, and I'm going to just start back at the beginning. When I do the yellow, I'm going to not necessarily bring it out as far as I have the white. So I just have yellow, and I'm just kind of rubbing it in the center of that flower. But again, I don't need to put it all the way out to where to the footprint of the white. So this is going to start that process of these beautiful centers of the of this particular style of flower without deterring from the white accents that you can also have within these as well. I think I might have called them daisies once. They're pansies. But pansies and daisies are just all so colorful to me. So I like colorful flowers. So again, just putting a little bit of yellow in through here to give myself that the appearance of that particular style. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush again, and I'm going to pick up black paint. Now I'm going to put a black center inside the yellow center. So I've got black, and then with the black you can pull it out a little bit in between those petals if you want to. That's going to give it a little bit more dimension. I don't have much paint on my brush at all. I'm just kind of putting a little bit in between that yellow, and then just pulling it out to maybe give little shadows or whatever in between those petals, if I thought I could get away with it. So a little bit of black down here, and then just pulling out these almost like little, again, tiny little shadows in between those petals. Well, that wasn't so tiny. Maybe some of them are big shadows. So there we go. And that one's down in the grass, so we don't really need to do much with that one. Little tiny black dot in through here, maybe pull out just a little bit. And then I will enhance the purple and the white in just a second, but this, again, is just kind of giving me that iconic kind of pansy vibrancy. You could go way more intense than I'm doing. I'm really just giving a loose interpretation of these flowers. You can, these colors can be so bold and so brilliant. So feel free to kind of have fun with how much information or detail you want. You could look them up, Google the pansies and see all the different styles that there are. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush and just clean up any of my edges that I feel would warrant. Actually, I might put a little, I'm putting a little yellow on my brush to just give myself a couple little yellow marks in maybe a couple of my out of focus ones, just for that authenticity. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some white and purple on my brush. And this would be where, you know, if there was areas like this one I feel needs a little bit more information or finessing, I would definitely just kind of use that purple and white to get those petals to do everything that I had hoped and dreamed that they would do. And you can, again, feel free to make one lighter or darker than the other. That's the beauty of these flowers, is they do come in such a wide variety. Even when you're looking at the same style of the flower within that bundle of them, they can have different color variations, and you know, one can be way brighter than the other, one can be darker than the other. So don't feel that they all have to be exactly the same, depending on what the lighting is, or depending on, you know, how the sun is shining. They really can take on a bunch of different shades and colors and stuff like that. They can have light edges to them, they can have light interiors to them. So really they're fun to paint because there's not a whole lot of rules that you have to follow, because they can be so colorful and chaotic in the way that their petals kind of represent themselves. And I'm just making sure that I've got all of my edges painted so I can't see through them. And if I need to do anything additional, I certainly will. And then we have one little step left to go. You can certainly modify this, make any last adjustments that you want. We'll be utilizing our small brush for the next step, so you can just wash and dry it and get ready. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush black paint. I'm going bottom left on this one. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date, or you can have a special symbol. Whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you'd like. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a cute little bunny and butterfly, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.